welcome back to Chessbox Worldwide. Today I bring you an explosive game played between GM Abdelrahman Hesham from Egypt and FIDE Master Donaldo Paiva from Mozambique during the 2018 African Individual Chess Championships, which were held in Zambia. Abdelrahman Hesham is an Egyptian chess player who won the 2016 African Chess Individual Championship, earning him the title of Grandmaster. He has also represented Egypt in the 2016 and 2018 Chess Olympiads. In 2023, he won the South Open tournament in Nigeria. Outside chess, Hesham is a professional certified hypnotherapist in Egypt. Donaldo Paiva is a FIDE master from Mozambique who is ranked #1 in the country. He's a two-time national champion of Mozambique and has represented Mozambique in the 4.5 zones. He's a multiple chess Olympian. During the Budapest Chess Olympiad Hungary 2024, he played an interesting game against East Africa's beasts IM Arthur Segwany and won the game during the Mozambique vs Uganda match in the Olympiad. Ladies and gentlemen, let's roll. So in the white pieces, GM Hesham played d4 and knight f6. c4, we see e6 opening up for the bishop, knight f3, trying to strengthen the fight for the center from white. Bishop b4, in this position, in case of knight c3, it's going to bring us the Nimzo Indian defense. In case of bishop comes to d2, so many exchanges will take place and it means the game is likely to end up in draw. So that's why we see GM played knight d2, Bogo Indian defense, to be in charge of this e4 square. That's why we see b6 planning to put the bishop on b7 and control the e4 square. a3. So in case of bishop goes back to e7, then e4 is going to be pushed. White is going to be in control of the center. That's why we see bishop takes d2 and queen takes. Bishop b7 controlling the e4 square. e3 opening up for the bishop. Bishop takes f3 doesn't make any sense because now you are giving up another bishop with a knight which is on f3, which is not doing anything. That's why we see short castling, bishop e2 and d6, trying to open up for the square where the knight can sit and go ahead and push the c5 pawn. Short castling, we see knight beat d7 and b4. In this position, a5 should have been considered. For example, in case of a5, then we would see bishop comes to b2, rook e8, queen c2, e5 and d5. But let's go back. After b4, FM played knight e4, attacking the queen, and we see queen c2, then f5, strengthening the knight on the e4 square. We see d5. FM played e5. For example, in case of e takes d5, then knight d4, emphasizing knight coming to e6 and forking the queen and the rook. That's why in this position, in case of queen comes to e7, c takes d5, and after bishop takes d5, queen is attacking the pawn which is on c7. f3 is also going to be pushed. For example, f3, knight goes to f6 and knight takes f5, attacking the queen and also attacking the pawn which is on c7. Let's go back. That's why after knight d4, black has to try rook comes to f7, and after pawn takes, would see bishop takes d5, f3, c5, giving up the knight and attacking the knight which is on e4. Knight comes to b5, attacking the pawn which is on b5, s6, and now we see rook d1, attacking the bishop which is on d5, and after bishop goes to c6, knight takes d6, knight takes d6, rook takes d6. The rook is attacking the bishop which is on c5, and also the pawn is going to be taken. You see the bishop is also going to come in to pin down the rook, and in this position I can tell you black will be lost. Let's go back. After d5, FM played e5, which was a very strong move, sidestepping all threats which had been put up by white. Knight comes to e1, planning to go ahead and push f3. Then we see queen h4, f3, knight goes to g5. f4 was played, but however, in case of bishop b2 should have been considered. For example, after bishop b2, f5 would be played, f4, this would give white a slight advantage. Let's go back. After knight g5, we see f4, after knight goes back to e4, we see knight coming to f3, attacking the queen, which is on h4. Queen goes back to e7. Bishop b2 was played, but for example, in case of f takes e5, then knight takes e5, and after knight takes e5, queen takes e5, bishop b2, attacking the queen, queen e7, bishop d3. This would give white a slight advantage. Let's go back. Hesham played bishop b2, developing the last piece and connecting the two rooks. Then we see c6, queen b3 was played. You see that the queen is putting the eye on the king. King h8 was played, but for example, in case of c takes d5, then c takes d5, and after e takes f4, e takes f4, rook goes to c8, bishop comes to c4, and after a6, plan to go ahead and play b5, then f4 would be played, stopping any b5 advancements, and after queen f7, rook ad1 with a comfortable game to play. Let's go back. After queen b3, king h8, moving away from all the potential checks, rook d1, and we see rook comes to c8, bishop comes to d3. Black played c takes d5, trying to open up lines for the rook and also opening up lines for the bishop. But however, in this position, knight c5 should have been considered. Let's go back. He played c takes d5, and after c takes d5, then he played knight coming to c5, giving up the knight and attacking the bishop and the queen, and threatened to go ahead and push e5, forking any of the pieces which are here on d3 at the same time on f3. So we see b takes c5, and now knight takes c5, attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. So queen comes to b4, then now we see knight takes d3, rook takes d3, and e4, forking once again the two pieces. We see rook goes to d4, e takes f3, rook takes f3, defending the pawn which is on e3, because remember the queen was putting an eye on the pawn. Then we see rook comes to c5. White played rook g3, but however, e4 should have been considered. For example, after e4, taking the pawn on e4 would not be a good idea. The best option would be 6. For example, in case of f takes e4, rook takes e4, and after queen comes to d8, queen e1, planning to bring the rook to sit on e7. Remember, the bishop and the rook will be putting an eye on the pawn, and also rook g3 would be a very powerful move. So bishop comes to d5, rook e7, rook is putting an eye on the pawn which is on g7, and the next move is rook coming into g3, attacking the pawn. This would be too much for black to handle. Let's go back. After rook c5, he played rook g3, which was an inaccuracy, and we see rook g8. It was a mistake. Rook f6 should have been considered. Let's go back. e4 was played. This position he played a5. h6 should have been considered. For example, after h6, then we would see h3, a running square for the king, bishop c8, defending the pawn, rook d3, queen takes e4, rook g6, threatening rook takes h6, and after king h7, rook g3, rook c7, defending the pawn, queen takes d6, and after rook d7, attacking the queen 5, and after queen takes e5, bishop takes e5, black will have fighting chances. Let's go back. After e4, we see f5, attacking the queen. In this position, we see queen takes b6, f takes e4, and in this position, the GM blundered the rook, and he played rook takes d7, which was a blunder. Let's go back. After f takes e4, best would have been rook takes e4, attacking the queen, which is on e7. In case of rook c1 check, deflecting the bishop away from the very powerful diagonal. In order to take the rook on c1, it has to move away from the attack of the pawn which is on g7. We see bishop takes c1, queen takes e4, bishop e3, stopping any queen e1 check, and that would be checkmate in 1. Bishop takes d5, putting more pressure on the king side. h3, opening up a running square for the king. Bishop f7, a5, rook e8, queen c7, attacking the bishop which is on f7, king g7, defending the bishop. White will have a huge advantage in the game. Let's go back. But after f takes e4, he played rook takes g7, which was a blunder. Black played rook takes g7. After rook takes e4, attacking the queen and opening up for the bishop. And in case of queen takes e4, then queen d8 will be a checkmate. Remember, you have to bring back the queen and then we take it, so it could be checkmate. That's after rook takes e4. FM Donaldo tried rook c1 check, deflecting the bishop, and after bishop takes c1, rook takes g2. Fantastic move. checking the king and planning to pick the rook in check. King takes d2, queen takes e4. After taking the rook on e4, he equalized the game. King f1, and after queen h1 check. Queen g1 should have been considered to try to stop all checks. Queen f3 check. Queen f2, queen h1 check. It could be draw, but let's go back. Queen h1, king e2, and queen g2 check. King d1, queen takes d5 check. Bishop d2, queen h1 check. Bishop to a1, and in this position they agreed to draw the game because black has lots of perpetual checks. For example, an interesting combination would be bishop comes to f3 check, then we would see king goes to c2 giving up the bishop after queen takes e1, then we would see queen b2 check. In case of king goes to g8, then queen goes back to b3, checking the king and picking up the bishop, which is on f3, queen endgame, which is always drawish. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck in your games.